Imagine waking up from a near-death experience. Your body still weak, your mind still foggy from medication and trauma, only to realize that the person you trusted most in life just delivered the cruelest betrayal. That's what happened to me. My name is Cameron Doyle, and this is not just the story of how my wife stole my savings. It's about how betrayal can sharpen your instincts, how legal safeguards can turn the tide, and how sometimes the end of a marriage is actually the beginning of real freedom. Let's rewind to the day everything changed. I'd been a long-haul trucker for 22 years. That lifestyle shapes you. You learn to be tough, independent, used to being away from home weeks at a time. But it also wears you down: junk food at truck stops, bad coffee at midnight, stress of deadlines, and loneliness of endless highways. For weeks, I had been feeling pressure in my chest. At first, I brushed it off. Truckers are stubborn that way. It's just stress. I told myself, just too much caffeine. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. One night on the road outside Omaha, the pain became unbearable. My vision blurred. My hands shook on the steering wheel. I knew if I didn't stop, I wouldn't make it. I pulled over on the shoulder and dialed 911 with trembling fingers. That call saved my life. Next thing I knew, I was airlifted to Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Doctors swarmed me, and I caught fragments. We're losing him. Flatline. Twice my heart stopped. Twice they shocked me back. I wasn't supposed to survive, but somehow I did. 2 days later, I opened my eyes in a hospital bed. Tubes snaked out of me. Machines beeped. I expected to see my wife Dana at my side. Instead, there was nothing. No flowers, no handwritten card, not even a voicemail. I reached for my phone. Only one message from her. My heart sank when I opened it. It was a screenshot of our joint bank account balance, the dollars beneath it. Dana had typed, "I deserve this after everything I've done for you." $61,000 gone in one swipe. That wasn't just pocket money. That was my emergency fund, my truck maintenance account, my retirement cushion. 20 years of careful saving wiped out while I was unconscious. How did I respond? Not with rage, not with tears, just a thumbs up emoji. Because at that moment, I was too tired to fight. Physically exhausted, emotionally hollow, I had nothing left to give. But what I didn't realize yet was that Dana's betrayal was not the end of my story. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one where I would finally stop ignoring the red flags, finally stop living blind, and start taking control. Lying in that hospital bed, staring at the glowing blue digits on my phone screen, I realized I was more than just a husband betrayed. I was a man at a crossroads, and crossroads demand choices. I could go home, confront Dana immediately, beg for answers, or I could pause, retreat, and play the long game. I chose the long game. The next morning, when the doctor came in, he reminded me of the seriousness of my condition. No stress, no heavy lifting, no driving for at least 6 weeks. I nodded politely. Inside, though, I was already making calculations. The last thing I wanted was to step back into a house filled with Dana's lies and Harold's cologne. So I made a call to the one person I trusted without hesitation, my brother Jeff. Jeff and I hadn't been particularly close in recent years. Not because of conflict, we just lived different lives. He was a construction foreman, grounded, steady, twice divorced, while I was constantly on the road. But when I told him, "I need a place to crash, and I need you not to tell Dana," he didn't hesitate. "Done," he said. That's what family does. When Jeff picked me up, he didn't ask questions. He just helped me into his truck and drove. For the first time in days, I could breathe without machines. At his house, I lay on the guest bed staring at the ceiling, the reality slowly sinking in. Dana hadn't just taken money. She had taken trust, loyalty, the foundation of our marriage. But what she didn't realize was that in doing so, she had freed me. She thought she'd burned the bridge. In truth, she'd cut the rope tying me down. The more I thought about it, the more I realized the betrayal didn't come out of nowhere. Looking back, the warning signs were all there. Dana had stopped asking when I'd be home. At first, I chalked it up to her being busy. She'd started taking trips with friends I'd never met. When I asked, she'd brush me off with a vague girls' weekend. She began guarding her phone like it held state secrets. I ignored it, because trust is what a marriage is supposed to be built on. But trust without accountability, that's not love. That's just blind faith. And blind faith can be weaponized. Real-world example, a survey by the National Endowment for Financial Education found that 43% of adults in relationships admitted to committing some form of financial deception, lying about money, hiding accounts, or secretly spending. Almost half, if I had paid attention, I would have seen Diana sliding into that statistic. That night, Jeff sat with me at the kitchen table. She took everything he asked. I nodded. He pushed a plate toward me, but I wasn't hungry. Instead, I thought about something important: paperwork. A year earlier, after my buddy Tim had a stroke, I'd drawn up a medical power of attorney and had my niece Megan, a law student, look it over. At the time, it felt paranoid. Tim's girlfriend had been locked out of medical decisions because they weren't married. I didn't want Dana or anyone to ever be in that position for me, so I appointed Megan as my emergency proxy. That decision would turn out to be gold. I had also refinanced our house just months earlier because my credit score was stronger. The loan had gone into my name alone. Dana hadn't even cared enough to show up at the signing. At the time, I thought nothing of it. In hindsight, that meant the house was legally protected from her schemes. And finally, I had accounts Dana didn't even know existed. Not hidden accounts, not shady business, just separate savings and small investments she never cared about because they weren't flashy. Lesson: never underestimate the power of boring paperwork. Medical directives, deeds, refinancing agreements, they sound tedious, but in moments of betrayal, they become shields. On the third day at Jeff's, I got a text from our neighbor Harold. It said, "Haven't seen you around. Everything okay? Dana's got some guy over." My stomach dropped. Harold had always played the role of the friendly neighbor, checking in, borrowing tools. Was he warning me, or was he covering his tracks at that moment? I didn't know, but the suspicion planted a seed. That's the thing about betrayal, it's rarely one-dimensional. When you tug on one thread, the whole web starts to unravel. Later that week, I walked into the downtown branch of our bank, not the neighborhood branch where Dana and I were known, but the main office. I asked to speak with a fraud specialist sitting across from me. She listened as I explained I had been hospitalized, unconscious, and during that time, my wife drained the account. Technically, Dana had equal access, but I argued that what she did constituted financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. Her face remained professional, but I saw it in her eyes: sympathy, maybe even anger on my behalf. She said, "We'll need hospital records confirming your incapacitation." I had those. She added, "If this escalates, the police could be involved." I nodded. "That's fine." And in that moment, the shift happened. I was no longer the victim lying in a hospital bed. I was a man building a case. Jeff introduced me to Blake, a lawyer he knew from work. Over coffee at the kitchen table, Blake laid it out straight. Joint accounts are tricky, but the fact that she emptied it while you were medically incapacitated changes things. Judges don't look kindly on that. And since you refinanced the house in your name, you have leverage. Blake explained something else I hadn't realized. South Dakota is an equitable distribution state. That means property isn't split 50-50, it's split fairly, taking into account factors like who contributed what and whether one party acted in bad faith. Dana's betrayal wasn't just emotional ammo, it was legal ammunition. He also gave me one crucial piece of advice. Don't contact her directly. Every word goes through me now. That was hard. Part of me wanted to scream at Dana, to demand why. But silence was the smarter weapon. That night, back at Jeff's, I thought again about Harold. Why would he text me, warning me about another man at the house? If he was the man, then I remembered little things, the shed he built with Dana while I was on a long haul, the way he lingered at our fence, the faint smell of unfamiliar cologne at home. The betrayal wasn't just Dana, it was coordinated. And if Harold was part of it, then this wasn't just about money, it was about a double life unfolding right under my nose. As I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling fan in Jeff's guest room, I had a realization that shifted everything. Dana hadn't stolen my future. She had stolen my illusion. The illusion that my marriage was built on trust. The illusion that hard work guaranteed loyalty. The illusion that being a provider meant being appreciated. By destroying those illusions, she gave me something more powerful than security: clarity. And clarity is the first step to taking control back. The betrayal had burned me raw, but anger wasn't going to fix anything. Strategy would. And if there's one thing 2 decades of trucking teaches you, it's how to plan routes, fuel stops, schedules, contingencies. That same mindset now shifted to survival, not on the road, but in my marriage, my finances, and my future. The first move was simple but crucial: document everything. I gathered the hospital records showing my dates of incapacitation. Twice I flatlined. That wasn't just stress, that was proof I was medically incapable of managing finances. I pulled bank statements with timestamps of Dinah's withdrawals, aligned against the hours I was sedated. I saved the message she sent me: "I deserve this after everything I've done for you," because words matter in court. That wasn't just spite, it was intent. Blake, my lawyer, nodded approvingly when I laid the documents across his desk. "Good," he said. "Judges don't care about tears, they care about timelines and evidence." That line stuck with me. In betrayal, your instinct is to scream, to make the other person feel what they've done to you. But in court, feelings mean nothing. Evidence means everything. Dana texted me a few times in those first weeks. Messages like, "Where are you?" or "We need to talk." At one point, she wrote, "I thought you were cheating. That's why I panicked." Projection. That's what cheaters do. They accuse you of the very thing they're guilty of. Every fiber of me wanted to respond, to lash out, to demand the truth. But I remembered Blake's advice: silence is strategy. So I said nothing. Each message became another screenshot, another brick in the wall I was building. The breakthrough came courtesy of my niece Megan, law student, sharp as a knife, interning at a credit union. One night, she sat across from me at Jeff's dining table, laptop open. "Uncle Cam," she said, "I think I found something." She slid a printout toward me. An account in Dinah's name, balance $127,000, regular deposits, always just under $10,000, the threshold that requires federal reporting. "This started 18 months ago," Megan explained. "The deposits line up with your trucking schedule. Every time you were away for weeks, money moved." My jaw tightened. Dana wasn't just opportunistic, she was deliberate. She had been planning for nearly 2 years. Blake later confirmed what I feared. She wasn't just stealing in the moment, she was building an escape fund. Hiding assets is a huge red flag in divorce law. And then came the kicker: Harold's name appeared as an authorized user. The friendly neighbor wasn't just sipping beers by my grill. He was cashing in. Proof of financial betrayal was one thing. Proof of infidelity was another. Jeff had long suspected Harold. The shed, the landscaping, the suspicious timing of visits while I was away. But suspicion isn't evidence. So one night I drove past my house. Dana's car sat in the driveway. Next to it, a sleek black Audi I didn't recognize. I circled the block. When I returned, I saw them, Dana and Harold, arguing in the driveway. My heart clenched, not from illness this time, but from confirmation. I pulled out my phone, hit record, 30 seconds of footage. No sound, but body language speaks volumes. The way Harold's hand lingered too long on her shoulder. The way they moved like people entangled in secrets. Later, Blake smiled grimly when I showed him. "This isn't just gossip anymore. This is admissible." Blake filed for an emergency injunction. The argument was straightforward. Dana had exploited me while I was incapacitated, and together with Harold, she was preparing to liquidate assets and flee. The courtroom felt colder than the hospital ever had. Dana sat across from me, her lawyer Patricia Wells, a pit bull of family law by her side. I wore my only tie, hands steady despite my heart's weakness. Judge Harmon adjusted his glasses, scanning the papers. Mrs. Doyle, is it true you withdrew the entirety of your joint accounts while your husband was hospitalized for a cardiac emergency? Wells stood. Your Honor, my client had every right. The judge cut her off. I asked if she did it. Dana whispered something. Then Wells replied, Yes, Your Honor, but she was under emotional distress. The judge set his glasses down slowly. While your husband was unconscious from a heart attack, he shook his head. I'm freezing the funds. Neither party touches this money until the divorce proceedings conclude. Relief surged through me. Not a victory yet, but a wall had been built. Dana couldn't spend another cent. Soon after, Harold's house went up for sale. Megan discovered he had withdrawn nearly $90,000 in cashier's checks. They were preparing to run. Blake moved quickly, filing motions to freeze Harold's assets too, arguing he was complicit in financial deception. Judges rarely extend orders to non-spouses, but given the evidence, Harmon approved a temporary freeze. That was the moment I knew we were winning. Not because of vengeance, but because every step Dana and Harold took had been anticipated. Every card they tried to play, we countered. Around this time, I learned something else valuable for years. I'd been paying into a disability insurance plan through my trucking company. HR explained, given your heart attack, you qualify for 60% of your salary for 12 months. It was like discovering buried treasure. Income Dana couldn't touch, a safety net I hadn't even realized I had. Lesson: always check the fine print of your benefits. You never know what protections are already there. A week later, Dana's lawyer reached out with an offer she'd return half of the stolen money in exchange for half the house equity. Blake chuckled when he told me, They're fishing. They know they're cornered. We refused. Silence is power. The more desperate they grew, the more leverage we gained. In the weeks that followed, my days became strangely structured. Mornings at Jeff's, drinking black coffee. Afternoons meeting Blake, signing affidavits, combing through records. Evenings walking around the block, my heart stronger with each step. Megan uncovered more hotel receipts in Minneapolis under Harold's name, lining up perfectly with weeks I was away in Seattle. The pattern was undeniable. Not only infidelity, Blake said, but coordinated deceit. Judges don't just divide property here, they punish bad faith. The final straw came at the injunction hearing when I played the video of Dana and Harold in the parking lot. The judge watched silently, then leaned back. Mrs. Doyle, you've declared under oath there's no relationship with this man, yet here we see otherwise, combined with the financial irregularities. This court has no choice but to protect Mr. Doyle's interests. Assets remain frozen. Mr. Doyle retains temporary sole possession of the marital home. Dana's face crumpled. For the first time, fear replaced arrogance. I walked out of that courtroom lighter than I had in years. Not because justice was finished, but because clarity had arrived. The road ahead was visible. Here's what I want viewers to take from this: evidence beats emotion. Keep receipts, records, texts. They're stronger than any speech. Silence is a weapon. The less you engage with a manipulator, the more desperate they become. Financial literacy saves lives. Understanding accounts, deeds, insurance boring paperwork becomes your sword and shield. Patterns matter. One suspicious deposit may mean nothing. 18 months of them, that's a scheme. At this point, I wasn't just surviving betrayal, I was mastering it. Dana and Harold thought they were 3 steps ahead. What they didn't realize was that I had already built a map that accounted for every twist they would try. And the next step was sealing the victory. By the time we reached the full divorce trial, I was no longer the broken man who had sent a thumbs up emoji from a hospital bed. I was prepared, deliberate, and ready to face Dana in the cold light of justice. On the morning of the trial, I straightened the only tie I owned, the one I used to wear for funerals. It felt fitting because what was about to happen wasn't just the death of a marriage. It was the burial of deception. Dana arrived with Patricia Wells, her attorney, known statewide for her ruthless tactics. I could see the defiance in Dana's eyes, the kind that said she still believed she could spin this, still believed she was entitled to what she took. But trials aren't about entitlement. They're about proof, and we had plenty. Wells wasted no time painting me as the villain. She claimed I had abandoned Dana during my hospitalization by failing to keep her informed, that I had refinanced the house behind her back, that I was emotionally distant for years. She portrayed Dana not as a thief, but as a desperate wife reacting to neglect. It was a compelling story if you ignored the facts. When Blake rose, his tone was calm, measured. He outlined the evidence, hospital records showing I was unconscious during the withdrawals, bank statements proving Dana moved every cent without notice, hidden account records with systematic deposits just under the reporting limit, video evidence of Dana with Harold, contradicting her sworn statements. He finished with one quiet but devastating line, "Your Honor, this is not a case of marital neglect. This is a case of calculated financial exploitation while a spouse lay fighting for his life." The silence afterward was heavier than any gavel. When Dana took the stand, her story cracked under the weight of questions. "Mrs. Doyle," Blake began, "why did you withdraw over $61,000 while your husband was unconscious? I thought our marriage was over," she stammered. "I needed to protect myself." "Protect yourself from what?" "From his hospitalization, from his heart attack." Her eyes darted, searching for escape. And this secret account, opened 18 months earlier, was that also protection? Deposits timed with his trucking schedule, amounts carefully kept under $10,000. Who were you protecting yourself from then? She froze. The judge's gaze hardened. Finally, Blake slid the hotel receipts across the witness stand. "And how does sharing a hotel room with Harold Jensen in Minneapolis constitute protection?" Dana's composure broke. Tears welled. I made mistakes." Blake didn't flinch. "Not mistakes, Mrs. Doyle, choices." Though Harold wasn't a party to the divorce, his presence hung over the trial like smoke. Blake introduced photos of the new shed, landscaping bills, and joint authorizations on Dana's secret account. Mr. Jensen benefited directly from these funds. Blake told the judge he was not a bystander. He was a participant. Judge Harmon's voice grew stern. "While I cannot rule on Mr. Jensen's involvement in this divorce, I will say this: his actions will be referred for separate investigation." For the first time, Dana looked genuinely afraid. She hadn't just gambled our marriage, she had gambled her lover's freedom. After 3 grueling days, the trial concluded. I sat at the wooden bench, my hands folded, heart pounding, as Judge Harmon delivered his decision. In light of the evidence presented, he began, "This court finds that Mrs. Doyle engaged in financial misconduct, including the concealment of marital assets and the exploitation of her husband during a period of medical incapacity." He paused, letting the words sink in. "Therefore, Mr. Doyle is awarded exclusive ownership of the marital home. Mr. Doyle retains his truck and 80% of all marital savings. Mrs. Doyle receives her vehicle and the remaining 20%. The secret account discovered is to be split evenly. But Mrs. Doyle's half will first cover all legal fees incurred by Mr. Doyle. Temporary restraining orders on further asset transfers remain until settlement is complete." My chest loosened as if a physical weight had been lifted. It wasn't about greed, it was about recognition. The court saw the truth, and the truth had power. Outside the courthouse, Dana tried to approach me. Wells put a hand on her arm, but she shook free. "Cameron, please," she pleaded. "You don't understand." I stopped, met her eyes for the first time in months. "No, Dana, for the first time. I understand perfectly," and I walked away. That was the last time we spoke directly. From then on, Everything went through lawyers. In the months following, Dana's bravado crumbled. Harold disappeared, whether out of shame or fear of legal consequences. No one knew. Rumors spread that he fled to another state. Dana sold her Audi and moved to Minneapolis, trying to start over, for me. There was no satisfaction in her downfall, only closure. Betrayal has a way of burning everything it touches. By the time the flames die, there's no victory, just ash. 3 months after the trial, I moved back into the house, my house now, but the walls felt poisoned with memory. The wine glasses in the dishwasher, the missing wedding photo, the faint scent of Harold's cologne that no amount of cleaning could erase. So I sold it, bought a smaller home closer to Jeff and Megan, somewhere I could breathe. I left long-haul trucking behind. 2. My heart couldn't take the stress anymore. Instead, I took a job dispatching. No roaring engines, no endless highways, but home every night. A steady rhythm, a chance to heal. As I settled into my new life, I realized Dana's betrayal had left me with lessons stronger than any heartbreak. Trust, but verify. Love doesn't mean turning a blind eye. Transparency is part of respect. Paperwork is power. Medical directives, deeds, insurance policies, they sound boring until they save your life. Evidence wins, silence strengthens. Arguing with liars gives them fuel. Silence turns their words into echoes. Freedom often comes disguised as loss. Dana thought she stripped me of everything. Instead, she set me free. One evening, while cleaning boxes in my new place, I found our wedding album. For a long moment, I considered throwing it away, but I didn't. I placed it back on the shelf. Because those pages weren't lies, they were a chapter. Painful, yes, but part of my story nonetheless. I realized something profound. Betrayal doesn't erase your past, it reframes it. And sometimes the life you rebuild afterward is better than the one you lost. If you've made it this far into my story, here's the truth: betrayal will break you only if you let it. You can't control what people do. You can only control how you respond. Dana thought she was 3 steps ahead, but I wasn't playing the same game. I wasn't fighting for revenge, I was fighting for myself. And in the end, that's a game you always win. When the dust settled, when the courtrooms emptied and the papers were signed, I found myself in a silence that was both heavy and liberating. Silence can feel like loneliness, but sometimes it's just space to rebuild. Space to breathe, space to finally see clearly. At first, it felt strange. For 15 years, Dana's presence, whether warm or cold, had been the backdrop of my life. Now it was gone. The house, the marriage, even the arguments were behind me. I remember sitting at my kitchen table one morning, coffee in hand, realizing there would be no more texts demanding updates. No more suspicious girl trips, no more silent dinners where words dried up before dessert. The absence wasn't emptiness, it was peace. People ask me sometimes, Cameron, do you hate her? And the answer surprises them, no. Hatred takes energy, and she already took enough from me. The opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference, and indifference is freedom. Trust had always been my compass. On the road, you trust your rig, your dispatcher, the weather report. At home, I thought trust meant closing my eyes to doubt. But I learned something. Trust without accountability isn't noble, it's negligence. Had I checked the accounts more often, asked more questions, insisted on transparency, I might have caught the warning signs sooner. That doesn't mean Dana's betrayal was my fault, but it means I gave her unchecked power. And unchecked power tempts even the best people, let alone those already leaning toward deception. A study I came across later said that 1 in 3 marriages experiences some form of financial infidelity, hidden debts, secret accounts, or deceptive spending. That statistic shocked me. But now, it feels obvious. Money isn't just currency, it's trust in physical form. If the money is dishonest, the relationship usually is too. Through it all, my brother Jeff was my anchor. twice divorced, hardened by disappointments, but steady in crisis. He didn't just give me a bed to sleep in, he gave me perspective. One night, when I was doubting myself, wondering if I had failed as a husband, Jeff told me, "You didn't fail. You worked, you provided, you trusted. That's not failure. That's what decent men do. If she couldn't value it, that's on her." Sometimes you need someone outside the wreckage to remind you where the blame really lies. And then there was Megan, my niece. Watching her dig through financial records with the sharpness of a seasoned investigator made me proud. I helped her with law school tuition afterward, not just as thanks, but because she reminded me of something Dana never did, that loyalty runs both ways. I spent half my life chasing highways, counting miles instead of moments. Long-haul trucking paid the bills, but it also kept me away from home, away from daily life. For years, I told myself it was worth it because I was building a future for us. But when us turned out to be an illusion, I realized something else. I had been sacrificing my health, my peace, and my presence for someone who never valued it. So I let it go. I left the cab behind, traded in the roar of engines for the steady hum of dispatching. Now I'm home every night. I cook my own dinners. I sleep in my own bed. I take walks under the stars instead of staring at them from truck stop parking lots. And you know what? I don't miss it, because sometimes leaving an old road is the only way to find a better one. If you take nothing else from my story, take these 5 lessons. Protect yourself legally before you need it. Medical power of attorney, wills, deeds, handle them while life is calm. Once crisis hits, it's too late. Transparency is non-negotiable. Love is trust. But trust is not blindness. Healthy couples talk about money, access accounts together, and remove secrecy. Silence can be stronger than shouting. Don't waste breath on liars. Document. Stay quiet. Let evidence speak louder than words ever could. Betrayal is clarity in disguise. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. Don't cling to the illusion of who you wish they were. Freedom often comes after loss. Dana thought she stripped me of everything. In truth, she stripped me of illusions and left me with freedom. And freedom is priceless. I'll never forget a story I heard while going through all this. A man in Illinois woke from surgery to find his wife had secretly drained their joint savings and maxed out credit cards in his name. He had no legal protections, no separate accounts, no documentation, and he lost everything. That could have been me. The only reason it wasn't is because I had paperwork in order and family who had my back. That's why I share this story now, not for sympathy, but for awareness. Months later, while unpacking boxes in my smaller home, I found our wedding album. For a moment, I considered burning it. The thought of Dana in that white dress, smiling at me like I was her forever, made my stomach twist. But then I closed the album gently and put it on the shelf. Because here's the truth: betrayal doesn't erase history, it reframes it. Those pictures weren't lies at the time. They were a chapter, and chapters, even painful ones, shape the story of who we become. Life now is quieter, simpler, but it's also fuller in ways I didn't expect. I spent evenings with Jeff watching football, weekends helping Megan with mock trials. I've started gardening, something I never thought I'd enjoy, but watching things grow reminds me that life continues, stubbornly, beautifully, even after storms. Sometimes, I'll catch myself driving past the old truck depot, watching rigs pull out at dawn, and I'll feel a pang. But then I remember that chapter is closed. The open road almost killed me once, physically and emotionally. I survived both. Now I walk new roads. If you're watching this and you've been betrayed, here's what I want you to hear. You are not foolish for trusting. Trust is what good people give. You are not weak for hurting. Pain means you cared. And you are not broken forever. Betrayal is not the end, it's the turning point. Dana stole my savings, my stability, and nearly my heart. But in the end, what she gave me was clarity, freedom, and the chance to rebuild a life stronger than before. So don't measure your life by what you lost. Measure it by what you rebuilt. Because sometimes the life you rebuild is better than the one you thought you wanted. If you've been through something similar, betrayal, financial manipulation, or even just heartbreak, share your story in the comments. Someone out there needs to hear it. And if you want more stories like this, hit subscribe. Remember, you can't control what others do. You can only control how you respond. And your response can turn betrayal into freedom. This was my story. Maybe yours is just beginning.